Hey, everybody. Jay Blakesberg here. Welcome to fans.com, Photos with Stories. Happy to have you joining us here on this Sunday afternoon on the East Coast and Sunday morning on the West Coast. We have a super fun program today. I got my old pal, Jimmy Crowley, as our guest. I've known Jimmy for, I don't know, around 30 years, maybe a little bit less. We met in the trenches of San Francisco rock and roll, and
how I wish I could fly.
Seen each other on and off for years and years and
like
years.
A bird
The
in
thing that's unique about Jimmy as a photographer is that he is a professional photographer, and he did event work, but he never pursued rock and roll photography as a profession. For him, it was a passion. I like to say that Jimmy Crowley was a professional rock and roll fan with a camera, and he knew how to use it. Jimmy and I are the same age. We were both born in 1961, and so we had, similar paths. A lot of you guys know my story. I grew up photographing and hanging out and seeing the Grateful Dead, and Jimmy grew up, rock and roll. His bands were the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. Not that I didn't love those bands, but those are the bands that he chased. And so we're going to hear Jimmy's story about how he pursued that rock and roll adventure and the photos that he came from that. But before we get started there, I'm going to just thank the usual people. I want to thank Will Schwerd, who's directing the video, Harrison Ezrati, who is handling the questions, which is a reminder. Put your questions for Jimmy Crowley in the comments of any of the streams, anywhere that you see it, whether it's my Facebook page, Jay Blakesberg Photography, or fans.com, or anybody that's hosting this stream. Harrison and his team of interns, which is Joe and Sam today, they will help find those questions and give them to Jimmy at the end of the program. Again, we'll thank Steph May, who does the marketing for Photos with Stories, and we will thank Pete Shapiro and Jonathan Healy. We're still in tough times, and so any money that we raise through Photos and Stories this week, we're going to donate to Backline.care. Backline helps musicians and production staff with mental health needs. Basically, we're in a tough spot with a lot of uncertainty, and so Backline helps that. I got Jimmy's website up there, jimmycrowley.com, and I always like to remind people, buy merch from the Capitol Theater, right, in Portchester, buy merch from the Fox Theater in Oakland, from Another Planet, or the Greek Theater, or the Independent, any of my favorite venues in San Francisco, the Warfield, the Fillmore. Buy merch from your bands, your favorite bands, because we all need help, a little bit of help right now. A lot of bands, a lot of artists are out there struggling. So just a reminder with all of that stuff. And my next program is going to be on August 2nd, Photos with Stories. That's 2 Sundays from now. And I'm going to have Rosie McGee, who was an early Grateful Dead photographer. She was Phil Lesh's girlfriend, I think in 67 and 68, I believe it was, maybe 68 and 69, if I'm not remembering that correctly. And she had a camera. She has photos in the Live Dead record. So that's going to be August 2nd here, Photos with Stories, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. All right, so Jimmy Crowley grew up in San Francisco, got out of high school. It was the 70s. It was a tough time. I grew up in that same period. We didn't have the internet to tell us what to do or how to live our lives. We were trying to figure it all out, and Jimmy ended up moving down to San Diego to go to college. Eventually, like all good rock and roll dudes, he became a college dropout. Way to go, Jimmy. And I believe his first concert was Y&T in 1976, which were a Bay Area metal band. I think the first show that he photographed was Sammy Hagar with a Nichromat camera, which later became Nikon, same brand really. And that was in 1977 at the Cow Palace. But the first photos that we're going to look at, and here's a picture of Jimmy that I've got up on the screen right now. That's a young Jimmy Crowley with his camera. Looks like a Ryko or something like that. I can't really tell what that says on there, but 50 millimeter lens, which is what we all started with. And the first things that he really took pictures of, Sammy Hagar, he made an effort, was Led Zeppelin, Day on the Green. For those of you who don't know what Day on the Green is, it was something that Bill Graham did in the Bay Area for many, many years. And Jimmy Crowley photographed so many Day on the Greens, and they were these epic day-long outdoor concerts at the Oakland Stadium where the Oakland A's played. And Jimmy went to many of these shows, you know, Zeppelin, The Who, Thin Lizzy, Journey, Santana, Fleetwood Mac, Peter Frampton. The list goes on and on and on of these bands that did these Day on the Greens, and they're legendary shows. And so this Led Zeppelin show was a Day on the Green in 1977 that we're looking at here. Jimmy, welcome to Photos with Stories. Really appreciate you coming on to the show with me. Tell me a little bit about this particular shot. I guess there's a couple of them here of Led Zeppelin, and what went right, what went wrong, and why did you keep bringing that camera back?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. This picture is of them doing Achilles' Last Stand, and I didn't get as close as I wanted to for the show, but I took them with a 135 millimeter lens, and I got a few shots, but I mean, it could have been better, but
not your best work, but you're 15 years old here when you took these pictures.
Yes, I was. And you know, for the 35, you know, for the 135, I was just not as close, but if there was any show I could redo, it would be this one, because that was the one show I was looking forward to shooting, because of the fact that I'd seen so many great works by Neil Preston and, you know, so many people. But
and which camera did you use for this? Was this your Nikromat that you were still working with, or did your dad loan you a camera for this?
Well, that was it. He loaned me the Nikromat for this and that. For most of all the Day on the Greens, I shot with a Nikromat. And I like the one of Jimmy, actually at the very end of the show, when Jimmy Page finishes Stairway to Heaven.
Nice, the double neck guitar, and he got the big smile on his face, and it looks like maybe, I don't know if that's John Paul Jones walking off the stage or if that's a guitar tech. Little side note here: when I first moved to the Bay Area, I actually applied for an internship with Jimmy's father, who had a professional photography business. He didn't hire me. Could have been the worst mistake he ever made, but that's okay. We're still here. And Jimmy remembers that. He, you know, I think his father talked to him about me, and Jimmy and I met a little bit after that. So, you know, after Zeppelin, we're going to jump around here. We're not necessarily going to go chronological. I would say that I mostly saw Jimmy. Well, not mostly. I saw Jimmy at almost every single Rolling Stone show that I shot in the Bay Area. And I shot, I think, maybe 6 or 7 Bay Area Stones. And this is Jimmy's band. Jimmy loves the Rolling Stones. So talk to me about this first series of photographs, which I believe are from '78 at the Oakland Stadium, Day on the Green. Is that correct, or was that Candlestick? These were Oakland also?
These were Oakland, Day on the Green.
All right. So talk to me about these.
That's Mick's birthday, the first one here with Ron Wood and Keith and Mick. And it was just the first time I got to see him. I mean, it was, and I got close too. But a few of us went up front for that show, my brothers and a couple of friends, and it was a great day. I mean, that was the first of it. I mean, it lasted almost, 30 years.
Yeah, and I'm going to flip through these shots from '78 here. So the one with Mick with the white hat on, which I love those. And I've seen other photographs from this show from other Bay Area photographers. Ronnie Wood with that great guitar with all that inlay in there. Right. Mick and Ronnie together. When you're shooting the Stones, are you looking for solo shots? Are you looking for shots of, Mick and Keith together, or the 4 of them together, the whole band? Like, what are you looking for when you're shooting these guys?
I'm looking for Keith, pretty much. I mean, there was a point where they said, "Hey, start taking more pictures of Mick Jagger," and
they said that to you?
Yeah, they did. They said, "Hey, have them take more pictures of Mick," and I was like, "All right." So, but Mick was tough. Mick was tough to photograph because he was always running around and jumping around and dancing around, and so I did. But in the beginning with this shot, it was that was a great lineup right there. The 3 of them rocking out, and in '78 with Mick, standing there, that was easy enough to shoot.
When he's playing guitar, he's not moving as much.
Yeah, but there's some photographs down the line here where he's moving.
Right.
and we got a few of them. But
And then the one where he's bare chested with the yellow, I don't even know, pants.
that's I woke up a little too late that day, and I didn't get out there fast enough. But
so did they do 2 nights? They did 2 days at this? It wasn't
2 days in Candlestick.
Got it. And this is 78 also?
This is 81.
This is 81 with the yellow pants. Okay.
Right.
Got it. And then in 79 you shot the New Barbarians. Where was that show? Was that in Oakland indoors?
That was in Oakland on May 18th, and then the Allman Brothers played the 19th. So I was out there both days. So, but this was, I mean, the Barbarians was and there's Bobby Keys and,
on saxophone, right?
Yeah,
and then
on organ and.
So I shot the New Barbarians at Madison Square Garden on May 7th, 1979. So about 10 or 11 days before you shot them, I guess they came to the West Coast. And if you look at these photos here, you can see there's 3 microphones or 2 microphones on a mic stand. I can't tell from your angle. I think there's actually 3 because they were sort of teasing that Mick was going to come out and sing with them, right? Because Ronnie and Keith shared one mic stand. It had 3 mics on it, and Keith took one side, Ronnie took the other side, and they had one in the middle, which was quote unquote the Mick Jagger microphone. But Mick, I don't think ever came out and sang on any of these particular shows.
No, but they shared two of the mics. They run up and be singing together. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and those shows weren't those benefit shows, or didn't the New Barbarians do a benefit show up in Canada for like a Keith's drug bust or something like that?
Yeah, but not down here. But yeah.
Right.
Toronto.
I think that's even one of the reasons why they maybe formed the New Barbarians to go and do that benefit up in Canada for Keith's heroin bust, to play that show, and then they just did this little tour. Mick in the football jersey. This is 81.
81.
Okay.
That's 81. I don't know if he's looking at me, but there's a lot of shots where you think he's looking at me, but I don't think he is. But
right.
I'm in a big crowd.
Right. And you're not in the photo pit, right? Like, I mean, you're just a fan with a camera. At this point in 78, 79, 80, 81, are you allowed to just walk into any show with a camera without a photo pass?
These days, no.
No, back then in 78, 79.
Yeah, you could. No one ever said anything about it. I never had any problems with it.
But eventually in the early 80s is when they started cracking down and making people get photo passes and be more legit. I mean, the beginning of my whole career was also just shooting from the audience. I wasn't getting photo passes until, the late 80s, really. Love these shots of Mick with those knee pads. Anything else you want to say about these 81 shots with Keith with that vest and the telly?
Not really. He always plays a telly, obviously. Mostly always plays the telly. And which picture are we on here?
I'm on the one with the black telly now of Keith.
Okay. Where him and Ronnie?
That one. Well, that's the one. He's got the blonde telly in that one where he's leaning back. This is the one that you got autographed years later, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I mean, these are all just, to look at these photographs and realize that you're just a kid in the audience. I mean, at this point, you're 17, 18 years old at the most taking these photographs. I think you're 18 here. Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, it just wasn't an easy thing to do. At this point, are you using the 180 millimeter lens, the 182.8 with the Nikon?
It's probably 135, or I started using a 180 a lot, but I don't think it was here.
Right. Did you have a 70 to 200 also?
I did shoot day on the greens mostly with the 70 180 or whatever it was.
70 to 200, yeah, because it's nice to have a zoom that you can go a little bit wider with, and also nice if you're just carrying a pocket full of film and one lens, it's a little bit easier then. And do you remember back then, did you have to sneak your camera in, or were you able to just walk in with it?
I think it was just walk on in with it.
Right.
There was a time where I had to hide it or actually go around security and get in by myself, but.
Right. So then we get to the later days. So in the earlier days, you're just walking with a camera, but here's a shot of Keith with the glasses and the leopard long coat. At this point, are you getting photo passes from the band? Because you mentioned that they're asking you to take more pictures of Mick because you're shooting a lot of Keith.
That was during that a phone call came to me from the manager as we were driving from my dad's house in Sausalito over the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was looking at the Fairmont, or not the Fairmont, but the Ritz-Carlton as I drove, and this man was talking to me saying, you know, James cannot shoot tonight because he did this or he did that, and I heard him telling the driver, I could hear what they were talking about, and he said, have him shoot more pictures of Mick, and it was a trip.
And so what year did you start getting photo passes for the Stones?
94.
And that's what this is, right? This is
the Voodoo Lounge was 94. So
yep. And I was right next to you in the pit for these shows at 94. Was that was Pac Bell Park, right?
That was Oakland.
Oh, Oakland Stadium. So that was a day on the green. One of the last day on the greens. And wasn't one of the shows in 94 a Halloween show?
That was yes, it was. I have the little sticker right here. March. It wasn't actually Halloween. It was the party was on the 29th. So I have the pass right here that I got. Actually, when I went into the Ritz-Carlton and asked, they were telling one lady she couldn't go and she was not handling it. And the lady just passed me mine and I was on my way.
That was the party at the Warfield you're talking about?
Warfield.
So I think we're going to get to those photos in a second here. I'm still on Mick here. Mick in 94 with that's 94 with the red jacket, right?
Yeah.
And this is 94. You got Keith playing the Les Paul with Ronnie in the red jacket. And then we get to the shot at the Warfield where Keith is hanging out with his dad. What's the story with these photos? And what's this party? And why are you taking pictures of Keith and his dad?
Okay. Ronnie Wood with the coat and then Keith right next to him. And then I was taken there I wasn't taken there, but I arrived at the show and I was taken backstage and she kept my camera and she said,
who's she?
I don't want to mention her name, but we'll call her Cece.
Okay.
And she took my camera and I was led into the backstage area and I looked and it was a 50-foot table of food. Then there's Mick Jagger and Ronnie, Joe Satriani talking. And then these kids over here playing video games. So I was wondering, I'm not going to eat their food and I'm not going to walk up to Mick Jagger. So I'm going to go play with these kids. And it turned out that James Jagger, one of Mick's sons, had beat everybody. So he goes to me, he goes, hey, you want to play me? And I was like, yeah, I'll play you. And I hadn't ever in my life touched a video game. So I played and I beat him. And before you knew it, I looked over my shoulder and Mick Jagger's watching us. So the kid runs off pissed and Mick sits down and we start playing this video game together. And he beat the shit out of me. And I was asking him, what, are you fucking on one of these things? And he was like, no, we have it on the road for this and that. And before you knew it, that was over with. And I was roaming around and there was Bert. So I sat with him because I was uncomfortable as hell.
Bert is Mick's, Keith's father?
Yeah, he was just sitting there smoking his cigar or his pipe. And I said to him, how you doing? And he says, good. He's just like nodding and, agreeing with me. And before you knew it, Keith came out and we were all three sitting there talking. And so.
What were you even doing backstage? Why were you even invited backstage?
Because, well, she was a very good friend of mine. I drove her all over. I drove her up to the Marin Headlands. I drove her to do, she was a good friend.
Got it. The woman who was the press liaison for the band.
Yes. And the fact that, she would tell Jane Rose, hey, Jimmy will drive you to go get Mick's book or Keith's books. And, I drove her down to B. Dalton and she ran in, bought Keith's books and up to the hotel we went.
Right. Jane Rose is Keith's manager. So, all right. So after we get this photo of Keith and his dad, so where is this photo? Is this backstage in Oakland or is this at the Warfield?
That picture right there, or them sitting there, is you can barely see the little balcony in the back on the ground. You walk up and like the one at Keith, if you see the Keith, he's leaning on that railing.
Right.
That's on the railing. So that's private. I wasn't allowed to go in that area. So I could walk up alongside that little wall and talk with him. I said hello to him, and Keith saw me and nodded. And the other guy was a good friend of Keith's who I just recently passed away. But
so this is at a private party at the Warfield for what? Just a Halloween party on a day off from their Oakland shows?
Right. Yeah, it was. I guess it was. I always thought it was until I found the pass, I thought it was the 31st, but it's not. It was the 29th. I mean, I shot 2 or 3 of those shows.
Yeah, I think I shot 2 of them also. And then there's this last shot of Keith and Ronnie together. Is that the same party or is that somewhere else?
That's the same party. And so I walked up and I go, "Hey, Keith, can I take your picture?" And he said, "Yeah, go ahead." And I said, "What about Ronnie?" So he elbowed Ronnie, and Ronnie turned around and we took that picture.
Nice.
And they told me, "Don't bring a camera." So I left my camera at home, but I went to the Walmart or the Walgreens and bought a little throwaway.
So all these photos of Keith and his dad and Keith, it's all with the disposable camera.
Those 3s are all with a Kodak throwaway or whatever.
Right. Imagine if you actually had a cell phone back then.
Right. Seriously.
And then this shot here, this is a shot of them all really close together. I guess this is maybe a second stage shot. Is that what's going on here?
That's the third or the second stage where they come out along the band. I don't know what it was, but the manager said he can't shoot Oakland for what he did, and I hadn't really done anything. They put out a hell of a website, but they came by my website and saw the fact that I was streaming audio off of my website, and I think they grabbed that idea and they ran with it. But they told me to take down the bootleg of Keith that was streaming on my audio website.
Where did you record the audio from?
YouTube or whatever.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then, so here we got a few more pictures. We got Mick with his hands up in the air. And
that picture right there is what got me in big trouble.
Big trouble. Why? Why weren't you supposed to take that photo?
This is after Switzerland. I showed up in Frauenfeld. It was after Amsterdam. I showed up in Frauenfeld, Switzerland, thinking I was in, and she said, "James, I didn't know you didn't call nobody." I said, "How can I call the woman? She's in New York." "Well, you didn't call us, and I didn't know you were coming. The woman that you were supposed to call didn't know you were coming. Tony didn't know you were coming, and Mick didn't know you were coming." And I sat there and went, "Wow, these people do know who I am." So I was just out of it. I just didn't care even. So I'm standing there and I'm watching them all go into the show, not even caring, because I had a hell of a day with everybody that was there. I mean, it was like a festival outside the show. And somebody tapped him on my shoulder and said, "Come with me." And I was like, wow. So we went through the gate, and
you got escorted in through backstage with your camera.
Right through a side door that was not far from the soundboard, and we sat on the soundboard and we watched the show. And this is probably one of my best. I believe this is my best Mick Jagger shot.
Is this shot digitally or with film?
Film, negative.
But you weren't supposed to take this photo, and then they got mad at you.
I wasn't supposed to be in the show at all because they told me, "James, they were always giving me a ticket. They were always taking care of me. But when you're that far away from home and you got a camera and then someone just lets you in the show, what are you gonna? I didn't do it out of hurt for her. She was good to me. It's like she's like this all the time. When my name comes up, it's like,
right.
I guess I hurt her feelings, and I'm sorry that I did that. But she was cool to me. They were cool to me. It was always great.
Right. But yeah, no, I know how that weirdness can come about. And then, okay, we got another shot of Mick here, and then we got Mick, this black and white one where he's kind of running across the stage. Is this Desert Trip?
That's Desert Trip. So anyway, the one behind that one where he's got he's got his hand up and the guitar. I took that picture, and then security got a hold of me. And
at Desert Trip or somewhere else?
That's at AT&T.
At AT&T. So you took this photo, and then security threw you out of the show?
Well, they tried to. I threw my camera to my nephew, and he the guy went after him, and I came up behind him, and I grabbed the guy's neck and pulled him off my nephew. And he was like 3 times the size of me. I don't even know where the strength came from. And all of a sudden they grabbed me and they escort. I mean, I had to tiptoe. They had my arms behind me and up, and it was very uncomfortable. So I get outside and they're looking for the police, and the police didn't show up. And the guy's going, "Where the hell are the police at?" I said, "Well, good, they're not here." And I said, "Look, let me go, dude. You got me out of the show. I'm sorry. You know, that was my nephew. I'd do it 1,000 more times, but I apologize." And the guy goes, "Well, you talk to him. He's the one you put your hands on." And I asked, so I told the same thing to the guy. The guy that's standing next to him, and he goes, "All right, let's let him go." And all of a sudden they're walking in. They're telling the usher, "Don't let him in." And so I went around another fence and walked right back in. I went down to my nephew and I said, "Hey, where's the camera?" And one of the guys I work with's daughter was standing right there, and she goes, "It's right there in the dirt." And we picked up the camera, and that was the end of that.
Too funny.
So anyway, they don't call. I don't hear from them. I send my request in for the next show, and they tell me, "Well, that's just before this show. To shoot this right here, they shot me down." And I said, "Well, then I'll accommodate myself." And I hung up the phone, and that put me in blackball forever. And then the Mick Jagger right here was at Desert Trip down in Indio, and I was right in front of them. They all recognized me. They were nodding, and Mick kind of nodded and rolled his eyes. And Keith and Ronnie and Charlie, I think Charlie was like, "I know you from somewhere" or something, but you know, it was trippy. And that was the last time I ever photographed them, and probably will ever again. But
right. I love the shot here of the 4 of them where it's just all, you know, Keith, Mick, Charlie, Ron. Like that to me is like, that's the shot you want to get these days. You know, if you can get the 4 of them in one shot.
Keith's kind of looking at me, and so is Charlie, and Mick's probably waving, going, "I gotta get away from this guy."
Did you not shoot the indoor tour a few years ago when they played in San Jose, I think it was, and Mick Taylor came out and played with them? Did you not shoot that show?
I did.
You did, but from the audience.
From the audience. I mean, there's no more backstage after AT&T. There's no more backstage.
You were banned.
Pretty much. And
Right.
you know, I can understand that. And then you have this one with the purple jacket.
Uh-huh.
That I was ready to go to the beach. It was a hot day, and I'm turning my computer off. And I noticed a picture, and I was like, I think that's my photograph. And it was being sold as it was on a T-shirt with Mick's. The guy took my picture, Mick's autograph, and a graphic of "Let's Spend the Night Together." I could tell right away it was from the graphic of "Let's Spend the Night."
So it was a bootleg shirt or an official Rolling Stone shirt?
It was bootleg. So I contact daddy.com, and the guy says, "Well, we sold him the website, but we're not responsible for what he's doing." And I said, "Okay." So I emailed so I went to find out where, what is it.com or whatever, you find out who owns the website, where it's coming from. And I just put an email out saying, "Whoever's doing this, you better stop right now, la, la, la." And the guy was lucky enough. I called him Viet Cong because he was from Ho Chi Minh. And he said, "I'm sorry, man. I won't sell them anymore." And I thought that was pretty good work on my part, but he probably is. And I said, "Hey, I know you made a lot of money off that shirt, so send me 2 cases and send me in extra large, and send me one T-shirt of medium for my daughter." But I never got him. But he sold.
Right. So let's move on from the Stones. This is Jimmy Page from the Arms benefit, which was a benefit for Ronnie Lane, correct? Is that what that was for?
Yes.
And at this particular show, we got Jimmy Page, we got Jeff Beck played, we got Charlie Watts sitting in with Eric Clapton, and then he's got a couple of Clapton shots. And is this the first time that you photographed Clapton in '84, or did you ever start shooting him before that?
That was it. That was his first time, the Arms concert. I was there to see Jimmy Page.
And who was Jimmy? Just like, was there a house band that all these guys sat in with, or did each of these people have their own band?
Clapton came out and did a set, and then Jimmy Page did a set, and Jeff Beck did a set, and actually it was Paul Rogers and Jimmy Page did a set.
Right, sure. And all right, and then so let's talk about Clapton, because you got a whole bunch of pictures of Clapton. The shots of him in the white jacket with the black Strat, which are great, and then the acoustic ones of him. What's the story with Clapton? How did you get in with him? How did you start shooting? Like, I'm looking at this shot here, which is the sort of close-up of him leaning over the guitar in color. I think you said this is maybe 98 or something like that. Is that what?
94 in Arizona.
So you're traveling to see Clapton, and how are you getting this access?
Roger Forster, who used to be his manager, was the nicest man in the world. He was just cool to me. I mean, I went to in the last picture down here where he's walking down the street, I had just met them. I just met Eric. He signed a photograph of mine. They gave me Roger gave me permission to shoot him. And it lasted for years. And after a few years, I didn't even see Mr. Forster. It was just, I put the request in, or I'd send something to him and they'd send it back autographed. And it was just a great relationship with him.
You're always looking for autographs of your photographs. You always carry 8x10s with you when you go to shows in case you run into these guys?
No. When I know that I'm going to meet the person I want to meet, I bring an 8x10 or 11x14 and have them sign it. But I wasn't running around with. I mean,
and then these shots here, Clapton at the Fillmore. That was like a unique one-off thing that he did at the Fillmore in San Francisco. I applied for a photo pass and they didn't approve me, but you got a photo pass for these shows. Is that correct, or did you sneak in?
No, I didn't sneak into these. This is Mick Double, which was his. I guess Scorsese was photographing this for some reason, and Mick Double was in charge of production behind Scorsese, and he allowed me to go in. And they tried to shut me down, and Mick Double said, "Hey, no, he's coming in." And I've never been able to thank him, man, but he was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But this was one of the best shows I ever went to.
Yeah. I actually was at the show, but I did not shoot it.
But Bill, I saw Friedman, Ken Friedman, is it?
Yeah, Ken Friedman's the Bill Graham Presents photographer.
He said they were pissed. I said, well, that's on them. The show's over. But right. That was one great show. I mean, I loved Clapton. I've always loved Clapton. He's been a great. All his Love Trouble songs. I went through some of that Love Trouble myself. So.
Where's the shot of Clapton and Santana from?
That shot of that's at the Chase Center.
Just like 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah. So if you go to the next photograph.
Okay. The two posters.
The one on the left was supposed to be mine for the Clapton tour photograph, and the one on the right is the one they used. And
why didn't they use your shot? What happened?
There was just too much red tape. I mean, I wanted to have my picture with Clapton. I mean, you're going to use my picture. You're going to make $80,000 off this. You think I can get a picture of Mr. Clapton if you're going to do that with my photograph? And it was no. And it's like, well, then don't use my photograph. And everybody's going, what are you doing? I said, dude, I'm not going out like that. They're not going to take my picture and use it. So the guy had said something to me in the end of our conversation. I was so pissed I wanted to say something to him, but I didn't want him to run back to Clapton. So I waited 3 months to sneak into this show at Chase, and that's one of the shots I got. I shot the whole show.
And you snuck. How'd you get your camera through the metal detectors?
I snuck in, so they didn't know what I had with me, and I didn't go.
You snuck into the show. You didn't even go through metal detectors. You didn't even have a ticket. You didn't just sneak your camera into the show. You snuck into the show.
Exactly, which everybody thought was going to be impossible, but it wasn't. And I can't tell you how I did it, but I got in and I got up front, and I saw one of the guys that I was dealing with, and he saw me, and the lights went out, and I felt like beating his ass, but I said I better just go shoot the show.
Yeah, it's better that you didn't. All right, so here we are. We're back at another day on the green with Thin Lizzy. This is Gary Moore, correct, and the bass player. Is that who that is?
Gary Moore and Phil Lynott.
And so again, you're just a fan in the audience. You just bring your camera in. What year is this Thin Lizzy show?
79.
Yeah, I was a high school senior in 79. I think you were a year behind me, maybe in school. You were a troubled youth. They kept you back for a year, I believe.
Yeah.
That's what they called us back then in the 70s, troubled youth.
Well, they were troubled too, some of them.
And then who's the guy in the polka dot one-piece suit with the spandex pants with the vests and the bass player?
In those years, we used to go to not the Russian River, but Lake County, where the Canuck was, and we'd always listen to UFO, and that's Pete Way of UFO and Journey, and all these bands that played all day on the greens. So, I mean,
right. So here's Neil Sean with this giant afro. I mean, he just looks in this red vest and these red leather pants. I mean, these photos are like the epitome of the 1970s. I'm going to flip through these Journey photos here. I mean, Neil again, different show, black Les Paul, high-waisted pants, shirt unbuttoned, giant afro. He's got that fro look, that Indian shirt. That blue Indian, the color shot with the Indian. I used to wear a shirt like that all the time in the 70s.
Right.
Ronnie James Dio from what is this? Is this Black Sabbath or is this
that was Black Sabbath? And I was wondering where Ozzy was, but I learned to figure out who this guy was, but I didn't know that at the time that he sung on Man on the Silver Mountain. And, he was doing a lot of stuff with Richie Blackmore. So
right. So was he in Deep Purple with Richie Blackmore, or was he just doing solo stuff with Richie Blackmore?
He was doing solo stuff with Richie Blackmore.
And then he replaced Ozzy Osbourne in Black Sabbath at some point.
Or Rainbow is what it was.
Oh, right. Rainbow. Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. Right.
So word has it that might be used in his wife's book. And
when did Ronnie James Dio die?
A couple years ago.
Just recently.
Maybe 4 years ago.
The Clash. Are you a big Clash fan?
I was then. That was Rock the Casbah.
Right. And this is at the Day on the Green. I love the red suit with Mick Jones and Joe Strummer or whatnot. Aerosmith, another big, great metal band. You did a bunch of stuff with them on Day on the Green. Again, at this point, are you allowed to just bring your camera, or do you have to sneak a camera into an Aerosmith show in the 80s?
Oh yeah, you can't sneak it. You can try to sneak it in, but I never did it. Well, I did the last picture I did, but no, their security's pretty tight. Same with Guns N' Roses.
Right. So we got a bunch of Aerosmith stuff with Perry and Tyler sharing the microphone there. Great stuff of Steven with that white suit leaning the microphone out to the audience. That's a Day on the Green there with the barbed wire fence behind him.
Yep.
And Joe Perry with that black Strat upside down lefty Strat playing it right-handed. And then what's this shot here of the three of them? Brad Whitford, Perry, it looks fairly recent, shot digitally. Where's that from?
That's from Treasure Island, at an Oracle party. You couldn't buy a ticket to that. You had to be a member.
And are you a member in good standing?
Probably not. So,
but you still got your camera in there. All right. Blue Oyster Cult, another 70s favorite. This is an indoor show. Where was this in Oakland?
That was at the Cow Palace.
Oh, right.
And I noticed two guys were following me, so I wrapped the strap around my wrist, and the guy tried to grab my camera, and I pulled back, and he didn't get away with it.
Was he security, or is he trying to steal it?
These were like two punk guys that were at the show, and then they continued to follow me. And I ran into a guy, a friend of mine who passed away, Pete Buick. And I said, "Hey, Pete, these two cats right here are trying to get my stuff." And he said, "Really?" And about 2 minutes later, they were both lying on the ground, and we got on the bus and we were gone.
All right. This is a Blue Oyster Cult at a day on the green. The Who, it looks like this is about 82, right?
Yep.
I wonder if this is the same tour where there was the big crowd surge in Ohio that killed a bunch of people.
I think it was.
Right. Again, with Daltrey and Entwistle. AC/DC, back when the original vocalist was still in the band, right?
That was the first time. That was the first time I ever saw him right there.
What year is this? I'm looking at the shot of what year?
78.
78. So you're still in high school. You're a teenager, 16 years old, and you're shooting one of your favorite bands, AC/DC, Angus Young, and what's the singer's name? I'm having
Bon Scott.
Bon Scott. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Is he still alive?
No, he died.
Is that why they were? So they got a new singer because he died. I'm not a big AC/DC guy, so I wasn't sure if it was because he died or he left the band and replaced him, and then he died.
He died right after Highway to Hell came out. And
right.
I was at McAteer, and I remember the day that he died. We found out in the morning.
McAteer's the high school you went to?
Yeah.
Right. AC/DC, Angus Young again. What's up with this kiss shot with him blowing the fire with the sword or whatever he's got going on?
I went into this show and you couldn't get up front if you tried. So I was walking the perimeter of the crowd and I ran into a friend of mine named Charlie McKelvey who passed away. And I asked him, "Let me get on your shoulders." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "I want to take a picture." And they're playing Firehouse and this guy's going to blow fire and I need to get the shot. So I got on his shoulders and boom, there it was.
What year is this?
It was after probably 80, 81.
Right. You're still a kid. Grateful Dead. You're not a big Deadhead, but you did shoot a few Dead shows. This is in 78.
This is when they came back from Egypt. And I walked in and everyone knew the guy I was with because he was the #1 acid seller of all time. I don't want to mention his name, but I mean, it was amazing that we wanted to get up to the front and people were letting us out of the way or letting themselves out of the way for us. And I'm not one that did acid. So there's an outdoor shot of Garcia, which was actually taken on July 16th, 1988, because I was standing about 10 feet to the right of you when you took this photo. Free concert in Golden Gate Park. And then later that night, the Grateful Dead played in Berkeley at the Greek Theater. But the next shot here is this picture of Garcia in the limousine. What's the story with this picture of Jerry in the limousine? I was leaning against the front of the car, like on the hood. And, I was watching everybody walk by. The show was over and I was kind of tired because it was a long day up front. And I heard someone go, "Excuse me." And I was looking around. I was like, and I looked down and it's Jerry Garcia. And I go, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Who are all those people out there waiting for?" I go, "You." And he goes, "Really? That's what I thought." And he tried to roll the window up and I said, whoa, let me take a picture of you. And that's the picture I took.
Nice. Fun. Bob Weir and John Doe up at Bob Weir's TRI studio. So you were up there doing some work for the publicist, Caroline Rostigian, asked you to come up there and take some pictures. Of course, John Doe from the band X. Robert Plant at Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. I'm the official Hardly Strictly Bluegrass photographer for this stage, and they wouldn't let me photograph it. So it's a free concert in Golden Gate Park. So I just walked out into the audience, had a bunch of friends that were sitting right in front of the stage, and just planted myself and shot the whole set. Looking at this photo, you're probably standing 3 feet away from me.
Well, true, but I was on stage. There was that one picture that I had, and we didn't put it in, where the bodyguard was there. And he was cool when you're walking around taking pictures of Robert Plant, but when he finds you on the stage, he saw me on stage, but when I lifted my camera to take a picture, he pushed my camera or something because I took the picture, but it's blurred of the whole crowd and Robert on stage.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a good relationship with Plant these days, and he lets me shoot him from on stage and whatnot. But took a long time for me to get to that point where Robert gave me that trust.
Well, he had one hell of a bodyguard. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, no, he's got some good blockers out there for him. Jay Giles band with Peter Wolf, looks like A Day on the Green.
That's with the Stones.
What's that?
That they played with the Stones, George Thorogood, and then Jake. Yeah, it was the Stones, Jay Giles, and George
Thorogood. 1978. This is or 79. 81, right? Because you're up close now, right? Peter Wolf jumping off the drum riser. It looks like. Magic Dick, is that his name? The harmonica player.
Yep.
And then this next shot here.
Montrose.
Oh, right, Ronnie Montrose, of course, right.
That happened. One of my friends was killed, and the next morning we found out. We drove all the way to Sacramento to see this show, and it was like I wasn't even there. But I got this shot. The Doobie Brothers, Rick Springfield, and Montrose played, but that was a hell of a day. It was the first one of my friends passed away.
Right.
And there's been a lot since.
Leonard Skinner. This is this Gary Rosington?
Yes.
Young Gary Rosington. So the first time you shot Skinner, Ronnie Van Zant was still in the band. He was still alive. Is that correct?
Well, the funny thing is, I still can't remember why I didn't bring a camera that day, because it was the Outlaws, it was Skinner, Frampton, and did I say Santana? It was just
yeah, and that was the big day on the green. Actually, if you go on YouTube, you can see there's a Leonard Skinner Freebird from that particular day on the green, which is great because I remember like there's a girl like on somebody's shoulders, and she's like in a halter top, and she's just so completely sunburned that I swear to God, her skin was going to just melt off of her bones. And that's what it was like in the 1970s. We'd go out, we'd bring no supplies, no water, no food, no sunscreen. And you'd be in Oakland in the summer, under the 80, 90 degree sun for 10 hours straight from, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning until it got dark at 9 o'clock at night. And you're just like roasted. But, so here's the bass player. Is the bass player?
Go back to the shot of Gary.
Okay.
You can see the scar on his arm from the crash.
Oh, right. Okay. So that when you took this, then Ronnie Van Zant was already dead. And Johnny Van Zant.
1980, July 16th, 1980.
Right. The bass player with an autograph.
Leon was a good man.
Right. Leon. Yeah, he was cool. He survived the crash. And then we get to this shot of Ricky Medlock. Is that his name?
Ricky Medlock, and then Peter Keys, and then one of the backup singers.
Right. And they're holding up your shot of Gary Rosington, right?
That's at B.R. Cohn Winery because they allowed me to shoot a lot of shows there. And
so interesting. This guy, Ricky Medlock, who's the guitar, he's in the current incarnation of Leonard Skinner. He had a Southern rock band called Blackfoot. And our good friend Neil Casal, who we did the show Photos with Stories last week, played in that band Blackfoot with Ricky Medlock. So just a little weird connection there. So you bring this photo backstage. You get a picture of Ricky holding it, and then Gary shows up, and then Gary signs these for you, right?
Yeah, they're tripping about how young he looked and how good he looked, and they thought it was the greatest shot of the world, and they couldn't wait till Gary came out. So when Gary came out, one of them said, "Hey, Gary, look at this." And they looked at him and he signed them. And
what are you going to do with all your autograph pictures when you're dead? Your daughter going to sell them all on eBay?
No.
And then this is
my buddies get them all.
This is you and Johnny Van Zant. What's the story behind this? I think you had a funny story about this.
So I mean, you can see if you go back to the picture where he's signing the pictures, there's Johnny coming. He's doing something in the background, but anyway.
I see him.
My camera was missing. Whenever I put my stuff down, I know where it's at and I keep an eye on it. So it was gone. So I see these two guys walking by with garbage cans, and I'm thinking they got to be the only two guys that could have grabbed this. So I'm walking up on them, and just before I said to them, like, "Hey," Johnny goes, "Hey, isn't this your camera right here?" And I go, "Yeah, it is my camera." So I came back. And that's the picture I took with my camera right when he gave it back to me.
So he was just fucking with your head.
Yeah, he was just playing games. I mean, but him, Billy Gibbons, Leon Wilkinson, are, you know, there's other people, but they stand out as probably the coolest dudes I've ever met. I mean,
Nice.
Johnny Van Zant was really a good dude.
Yep. Here's another shot of you with Gary and Billy Powell, the keyboard player, and then I think that's the drummer of Skinner, current version.
Owen Hale.
And then we got some newer work here. We got Billie Eilish. What's the story with this?
That was a contest to go see her down at Apple in their little, I forget the name of the theater, but they have a theater, and then it's right behind the big O, or their headquarters.
Right.
And I just said, well, I'll see what luck does. So I put a request in, and then I put another request in for my daughter because she was at school, and we both won. And I don't know anybody on this earth that won as well as us, but Erin couldn't go because of the fact that she wasn't 16, but she was close enough. And, you know, another thing is all her fans are like 14, 15, 16.
Right.
You had to be 16 to be.
But you weren't allowed to bring a camera to this, were you?
They didn't say anything about that.
Because I've been down to the Apple campus and they're like so secretive down there. I was doing a portrait of Jacob Dylan from the Wallflowers, and I was allowed to do that. It was approved. It was a magazine store I was doing. But when he started playing the show that night, they wouldn't let me photograph it because they were like, no photos of bands at the campus.
Well, it's been a long time. It's been a long time that you can't bring a camera in with a detachable lens.
Right.
I went out and bought a camera that looks like a consumer model, but it takes nice photographs.
Right, with a lens that doesn't detach. Is that what you took this picture of Paul McCartney and Neil Young with?
Yep.
And this is a desert trip?
Yep.
Nice. I have some pictures of McCartney and Neil Young sharing a microphone together at the Bridge School benefit a number of years ago. Bob Dylan, also from Desert Trip.
Yep.
Sammy Hagar, your first guy you ever shot. I love Sammy. Love photographing Sammy. Sammy's been saying some stupid political shit lately that a lot of people don't agree with. But hey, we'll go skip that. Where's the shot of Paul McCartney at?
Go back to the Sammy.
Go ahead.
So we're down there at the Regency Theater, and there's about 20 of us trying to get in. And one guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Jimmy, we're not getting into this one." And I said, "Watch this." And I walked straight. I was standing right outside the doorway on the curb. I walked straight ahead, walked right by two Fillmore Street partners, and said hello and nodded. See, that was the only, when you're trying to get in somewhere, you always acknowledge yourself and say hi to them, but just keep walking. So I walked by them, and then I get inside, and there's another person I have to walk by, and sure enough, he turned his back, and I walked right past him, and I got in to shoot this shot.
Nice. Yeah, I shot this show also. This might have been the last show that we shot together, the Ronnie Montrose tribute concert. Bammy, or was this the Montrose tribute show or the Bammy show?
It was one of the other. I thought it was the Bammies. No,
Yeah.
I thought this was the Ronnie Montrose show.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I was there too. Paul McCartney in Oakland, right?
Outside Lands.
Outside Lands. And did you sneak your camera into that festival?
Oh yeah.
Did you sneak? And did you
people in there too?
You snuck people in there also?
Yeah. Moving on to Ziggy.
All right, we won't go down that road. All right, Ziggy Marley. This is a really old shot of Ziggy when he was a young kid and had short little dreadlocks. What year is this shot of Ziggy?
87.
And you shot a lot of reggae early on in your career as a photographer when you were in college in San Diego and in the early 80s. So we got Ziggy Marley, and you got who's the guy with the giant dreadlock that's flying up in the air?
David Hines of Steel Pulse.
Steel Pulse, right. And then you got another shot from Steel Pulse. And then you got this backstage shot of some of the original Wailers.
Junior Marvin to the left. Family Man Barrett, one of the baddest bass players known to man. And Irvin Jarrett, who they called Carrot, who passed away.
Mm-hmm. And then Jimmy Cliff. I love this shot here. Great shot of Jimmy. But reggae, we'll talk about some more reggae when we get to some of those autograph photos. Johnny Cash. So you shot Johnny Cash 2 days in a row. You shot him up in Santa Rosa and you shot him in San Francisco. This first one where he's not smiling, where's that at?
That's at the Luther Burbank, and I lived right across the highway off other side of 101, almost directly behind it.
In Santa Rosa.
In Santa Rosa. So I walk over and I'm selling myself to the manager, and he's like, all right, we're gonna let you shoot tonight. And all of a sudden a limousine pulls up and it's Johnny Cash. And he walks up and I said, hello. I said to him, hello, I'm Jimmy Crowley. And he said, hello, Jimmy Crowley, how you doing? And I said, hi, I'm doing good. And he was just nice. He was a nice man.
He should have responded to you and said, hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
Well, he got a kick out of it. And he said, hi, how the hell you doing, Jimmy Crowley? And I said, I'm doing all right. And then I asked the guy if I could shoot in the city. And he told me, I talked to him by phone. He goes, I'm allowing you, and Johnny's allowing you to shoot the show in San Francisco. And
that was the next night at the Fillmore?
At the Fillmore. You see how, I mean, at this show, it was all, I mean, there were Amish people there. It was all older people. And
at the first night up in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, but down in San Francisco, off that album he did, that was
the Rick Rubin one, yeah.
The Rick Rubin one, it was all kids. And so he was, I mean, not that he didn't smile the night before, but I mean, he was happy as hell this night.
Right.
He knew his album did good.
Yeah, I shot this show also, this Johnny Cash one at the Fillmore. Leon Russell, the late, great Leon Russell. This is up at the B.R. Cohn show, right?
Yeah, I saw you there.
Yep, I was there. Prince. Prince never lets anybody photograph him. Do you sneak your camera into these shows?
I snuck my camera into this show in '84.
Oh, so this is the Purple Rain tour.
That's Purple Rain. And we snuck in and we got under a portable like toilet system. It's like on tracks. It's they have it backstage and stuff. And we're waiting for the first person to be running around. Then we come out, but security stood there, and we're sitting under all their feet and everything. And finally, that was over, and then we got in, and that was the one.
That's how you snuck in. You say not only did you sneak your camera, and you actually snuck into the show. So when we were talking yesterday or the day before, you were telling me that basically you started sneaking into shows like in the late 70s. Like this was an art for you guys, cutting down fences, porta potties, fake tickets, fake wristbands, like anything that you could do. You guys were like the masters of counterfeit, everything. You guys could have been like bank robbers. You might have even gotten away with it.
Guilty.
Guilty. All right, all part of the adventure. So Prince again. These other two shot stories were in the yellow outfit. Where are these from?
Those are shot at the LA Forum, and I snuck into there, and I was inside. Two things happened. One, I met him. I heard a bicycle, and I'm sitting there reading the daily. We move in, we rehearse.
The production schedule.
Yeah, I'm sitting there reading it. So I look, and it's Prince walking towards me. And so I went back to reading, and right out of the corner of my eye, I saw him get closer and closer. And when he got right to me, I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing good. He said, enjoy the show. And off he went. And I was going to ask him if I could take a picture because I had all my stuff with me. And thank God I didn't, because that would have changed the whole day for me. He did not want I don't know if he didn't let people take pictures with him, but
he didn't let anybody even shoot him in the shows. It was like, I got thrown out of a Prince show at the Warfield, a late 80s show after he played in Oakland earlier in the day. But yeah, I like the one where he's got his finger up in the air. Tom Petty, where'd you shoot that one?
That was at Treasure Island.
And that was an Oracle show also?
Yeah. We saw Elton John. We saw Elton John, Pearl Jam, Tom Petty.
Yeah, always lots of great big corporate shows on Treasure Island with Oracle and whatnot. And I'm not even going to ask you how you got into those shows, let alone bring your camera in. But I'm just going to assume that there was
camera got in.
There were shenanigans that were going on. ZZ Top, love that shot of them with their hats and their beards and their ponchos. Here's one from the Cow Palace with the baseball hats on. I was at this show also.
I gave that shot to Billy Gibbons.
Nice. I shot that show for Rolling Stone magazine. They did a show review of it. Van Halen with David Lee Roth. So what year are we talking here?
78.
So this is the very beginning of Van Halen, which is amazing because they were a giant band. Were they an opening act at this Day of the Green for like somebody else?
Yeah, they weren't the headliner. Some people knew who they were, but I didn't know who they were. And after they played along with AC/DC, they were like, when are they coming back?
Right. Everybody knew who they were after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they became a headlining stadium band by, I think, 81, maybe even 80. So didn't take long for that trajectory. Any particular Van Halen stories you can share with us?
No, never met any of them.
Paul Kantner from the Jefferson Starship Airplane with Jack Cassidy backstage. Where's this at?
That's the same place that Garcia played, right there.
Right, the band shell in Golden Gate Park.
Right.
And this is a free concert they were doing as the KBC, which is the Kantner Band and Cassidy Band.
Yeah, they were just really cool and let me hang out and taking pictures. And
right. There's Marty Balin and Slick Aguilar, the guitar player. Carlos Santana, Outdoors. I believe this is the big free concert in the Mission District. Some of these,
Harrison Street.
On Harrison Street, which I didn't go to. It was the year after I went to the same show, but it was the Neville Brothers who were the headliner. And this is the show that Jim Marshall is at. Here's a shot of Carlos with the legendary photographer Jim Marshall behind him shooting with his Leicas. Did you know Jim?
Yes.
You guys were friends.
Yeah. I mean, I went to his house one day where you'll later see that he gave me that picture. And this day I almost hung out with him as what do you call it? A apprentice.
And okay, so that's how you got up on stage. Jim brought you up on stage.
Yeah.
And then here's this backstage shot of Jim Marshall, a guy named Johnny Villanueva, and Carlos. Who was Johnny Villanueva?
He was the roadie for Journey, and he actually gave Journey their name.
Nice.
Go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to move on, but go ahead. Continue.
Someone corrected me. I posted that picture and called him Buckbo because of the T-shirt he had, and some guy said, "No, that's not Buckbo. That's John." Da, da, da. So
Villanueva, right?
We've changed that now.
Got it. All right. What are you doing shooting Britney Spears?
I just thought it'd be high security. It would be tough to get into, and I didn't think she was. I thought she was pretty cute, so I'd give it a try. And I went down there and I snuck in. I walked right through the door. The guys are looking at me and I'm nodding at everybody and waving at everybody. And I walked right in. I'm standing there, not on the railing, but I'm sitting back, so I don't make you don't walk in and walk right to the railing and sit there with your camera like you're going to shoot the show.
Right.
So I stood there and all of a sudden, her father comes out with another guy, and then all the security comes out, and I'm standing like in the middle of them.
And they're having a security meeting, and you're in the middle of it.
I'm in the middle of it. Like they thought the dad thought I was with security, and the security part thought I was with the dad. And they were talking about no professional cameras, no video, keep an eye on these people. If they do either or, throw them out now. And I was sitting there going, this is great. And the show went down and I got my pictures and that was it.
And you snuck into the show as well?
I walked right through the door.
Right. You already said that. Okay. It's funny. I've done things like that. But one time I went and saw Pink Floyd at the Oakland Stadium. I think it was one day on the green back in the late 80s. And we were supposed to get there by a certain time to meet the press rep. I had a photo pass and I was late. And I didn't, because nobody told me to be at that certain time. And I got there late and they had already been inside and they wouldn't let me in. And so I just walked to the backstage entrance and just walked straight through backstage, walked into the venue, walked into the front row, sat down in an empty seat and stayed there the whole night and shot the concert from the front row in that seat. It's the only time that something like that really happened with me. Here's the Doobie Brothers. At Stern Grove, which is a little park right near my house in San Francisco, and they do a free concert series there every summer. I'm a huge Doobie Brothers fan because that was my very first concert that I ever saw when I was in ninth grade in 1975 at Madison Square Garden. And I'm still friends with these guys. I didn't meet them back then, but I became friends with them when they hired me to do a publicity photo of them 20 years ago, 18 years ago, and I've been friends with them since. But you were at the show, and that's where you took this photograph of me at the Doobie Brothers at Stern Grove. So let's talk about some of these pictures of you and your heroes. Here's you and Robert Plant. Is this when you got Robert to sign this photo of Led Zeppelin on stage?
A friend of mine worked at the Fairmont Hotel, and he told me that they're here, blah, blah, and so I went there. Right when I walked to the door, he walked downstairs. He was walking downstairs, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I show you some pictures and take a picture of you?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll be right back." And I thought, that's about not going to happen. But he went to the front desk, he talked to the people, and he walked right back to me, and we took this picture. And then later that morning, I saw Jimmy, and Jimmy came down and signed the picture and talked to me for a while. And, you know, he was very nice and very cool. And the bodyguard was a prick. And he told me, don't show him the pictures. And I did. And he said, we're not taking any pictures. And I just didn't, I thought Jimmy would probably be the same way. So I just left it alone. But Jimmy was very cool. He said goodbye. And the guy that worked there told me, Crowley, you did pretty good in there because Jimmy Page told two guys pretty much to fuck off yesterday. So,
and then this is you and Jimmy Cliff, I believe, right?
That's at the Greek Theater.
And who are these reggae guys here?
If you can see the picture, there's 19 people looking at this camera, and I'm one of them. So that's me, David Hines, and these are all people that are out backstage. This is like
Steel Pulse.
Steel Pulse headline.
And this is in Jamaica.
It's in Jamaica, and we're all back. We're outside of that big fence right there. That's the other side of it's backstage. So we're out in the public.
Okay, got it. So this is this Reggae Sunsplash?
Yeah.
And who's this percussionist? This is Cap from the Wailers, right? And then I love this shot here because there's this like little window in this bamboo fence, and if you look behind it, it looks like there's a guy. Is that a man? Is that a ghost? Is it a person? What is that back there?
It's the branches of the tree, but they're in this. They're lined up like a man's face is looking right at me.
It's so weird. I think it's a ghost, man. I think it's like the ghost of rock and roll, like looking over your shoulder or something.
Like going, what are you doing here?
Here's you and Billy Gibbons with a photograph that you gave him, and in your best lawyer outfit, where you got your
Right.
khaki pants and your button-down shirt. Here's I like the shot of Ron Wood and Keith that they both signed for you, and it looks like Ronnie did a little self-portrait on the bottom there. What's up with that?
He was touring with Bo Diddley, and as he came through the backstage door at the Fillmore, I handed it to him, and he signed it, and he handed it back, and he goes, "Nice shot." And I said, "Hey, can you draw a doodle on it?" And he did, and he drew himself.
Love it.
That's hung in my house since 1981.
And here's another shot of Keith that you got signed. Keith's got a good signature. I've never seen Keith Richards' signature before.
Yep, that's it.
Another reggae shot signed by a bunch of guys. Who's the
Third World?
Third World, okay. And then here we got now did just Angus sign this, or did Bon Scott sign this also?
They both did. But
wow.
The funny thing is Bon put the arrow right through his heart, like.
Yeah.
That's what everybody trips on. But
so what's the story with this? That it looks like Kirk Hammett wrote "Jim, fuck you," and then Carlos signed it, but I don't really think he was saying "fuck you." What's going on here?
I thought he was saying "fuck you," and I was like, "What?" And then all of a sudden I read that it's "fuck yeah," and I was like, "Okay."
So when so you were like, "Oh my god!" Like you were freaking out, like he was pissed that you asked him to sign it, and that's why he wrote "fuck you." But he really loved the photo so much because it's him and Carlos.
Well, the funny thing is, you see the Jim, it's big letters, and then fuck, and it's like, what? And then it's like Y-E, but I thought it was, I mean, we're almost in darkness when he did it.
Right.
But I mean, you know, he's cool. I mean, Metallica's great. I photographed them, but I didn't throw them in here.
Right. Yeah, this is the Bammies, the Kirk and Carlos. I was at the show also. Another one of Carlos. to Jim with gratitude.
The Bammies.
Yeah, Carlos is great. I happened to be in his office having a meeting with him, and it was my birthday. And I think it was my 51st birthday. And one of the people that worked for him, a woman named Rita Gentry, worked for Bill Graham for many years, and I worked for Carlos, looked at me and said, "Oh, hey, Jay, happy birthday." And Carlos looked at me and said, "Oh, it's your birthday?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Happy birthday." And then he nods over to Adam Fells, another guy that works for him in the office. And Adam disappeared, came back 10 minutes later with a guitar, Paul Reed Smith with the Abraxas, mother of pearl inlay in it, took it out. Carlos writes, "To Jay, happy birthday, Carlos Santana," and hands it to me and gives it to me for my birthday.
Very nice.
Have it hanging on my wall in my office. Here's a photograph of Jim Marshall that says, "Thank you, Jim Marshall." That looks like he's taken at the Bammies. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Jim and why we have this photograph here that Jim is signed that is torn up into 8 different pieces of the Rolling Stones recording "Exile on Main Street." What's up with this?
I was a big fan of Jim Marshall's, and I wanted him to see some of my work, and I brought him some work, and then
At his house?
At his house on 15th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I went there. He called me and he said, "Hey, come on down. I got a show going on, so people can walk in and buy stuff if they'd like." And I said, "All right, I'll come on down." So I went down there, and some lady bought this picture, and he tried to sign it, and the pen ran out. So
I see that, right? I can see the pen ran out.
So he ripped it up and threw it on the ground. And I, after the lady walked out with the picture that was signed, I said, "Hey, can I have this one?" And he said, "Sure, go ahead." Then he went to other pictures, and he took one picture and ripped it up because he didn't like the guy that he took it of. And he showed me some of the prints that he printed that were in his garage, or not his garage, in a closet. The one of Dylan with the tire down the street in New York, and
mm-hmm.
So he was just a nice guy. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely crazy motherfucker, but a heart of gold.
No, he had a heart of gold, definitely.
So I think that is our last slide. Do you still shoot? Are you still shooting out there a little bit? I know you did Desert Trip.
I shoot. I mean, if a big band came back, I'd probably do the same thing. But
do you think your days of photographing the Rolling Stones are over?
Yeah.
Because they won't give you a photo pass, or because
I don't care if they do or they don't. I mean, how many times can you shoot them?
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much done. I mean, I had a good roll. It was fun.
And what now? You got this giant archive. What are you going to do with all your photographs? You want to make a book? You want to
I might. Well, I mean, I've been talking to you about it. I mean, you'll probably be the one doing it if I do. But
all right. Well, I wasn't sure if you were still thinking about that. It was it was a while ago. But and your stuff has been published in magazines here and there. But do you get people still call you and ask you if they could publish stuff, or like how did Ronnie James Dio's wife find you to maybe use one of his photos in the biography she was doing?
Because I'm not looking to sell. I mean, it'd be nice to make money off them, but I don't sell them. So, I mean, I make enough money and I have enough money, and I don't. People probably think I'm crazy, but it's easier to call someone up and say, "Hey, I took these pictures 40 years ago, and you're welcome to them." And she ate them up big time.
Right.
Wendy Dio said, "Yeah." She told her assistant, "Well, tell me what they look like." And then she saw them and said, "Hey, I want this one for the book." Well, I was trying to submit them for the documentary. And then I found out, another assistant called me and said, "Well, we want it for the book, the documentary, and for merchandising." And I'd already just given them to them, so I can't say, "Well, you're gonna have to pay for this." And so they're theirs, and it's a much better giving a photograph to somebody and having them love it than the money it's worth to me. I mean,
right. Yeah, no, I know. It's funny. I mean, I know a lot of photographers that take photographs and they end up in shoe boxes or photo paper boxes, and they never see the light of day. And, to me, that's not what I ever wanted to do. I always wanted my work out there, and I always wanted people to enjoy the work, because I think that these photographs bring back a lot of really important and profound memories and experiences for, us. I mean, looking at these photographs of yours from the late 70s, I mean, this is, 40 something years ago. Right. And this is pop culture history. and these photographs, you listen to a song on the radio, like if you're a big Van Halen song from the beginning in the 1970s, and it comes on the radio, or you put it in, it brings out all these emotions and feelings, and then to see that photograph sort of reinforces that and makes that feeling even more intense. So I think it's important to share this work, and I think the internet's been great, and Instagram and things like that, where people can connect with those photographs.
A lot of these negatives sat in boxes unseen to even me for years. And I mean, I've been getting off on the fact that, wow, I took that picture or this one or that one. And,
but a lot of these photos, when you were shooting and when you were younger, you were just developing them and just thumbtacking them to your bedroom wall, right?
Pretty much.
Giving them to your friends.
I had them in a big, I'd pull them out at parties, and do you ever see this one? You ever see that one? Or, there's a guy that
you were the life of the party.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, some of these pictures, I mean, they blow my mind. I mean,
yeah, as they should. You should be proud of your work. Harrison, wondering if they got any questions out there.
Yeah, we have a couple.
Okay.
So Sal wants to know, what is the most creative way that you've ever snuck a camera into a show?
The most creative way is down the arms of my sleeves. I mean, that's about it. I mean, yeah.
So you had a jacket that was big enough to hold a lens and a body?
Yeah, a 180.
And you would just like walk in, put your arms up, and the lenses were in there, and the sleeves were big enough that they couldn't tell there was something in there?
Right.
And then when you put your arms down, did the stuff fall into your hands?
Yep. No, I'd have to drill. I mean, it was tough getting them out. No, they wouldn't go all the way through. No.
Got it. Did you ever get caught trying to sneak a camera into a show and get thrown out, or tell you to go put it back in your car?
Nope. Never.
Right.
No, never.
Right.
Stones told me, go put your camera in your car and come and see us. And I never brought a car. I took Bart.
Right.
So the camera always came with me.
Right. Public transportation, Bart. All right, Harrison, you got another question for Jimmy?
Yep. We got another one right here. So do you think that you would have had the same passion for photography had you not grown up in the, California Bay Area?
Well, no, because my father turned me on to a lot of music, and he was a photographer, and we grew up right in the middle of all of this stuff that was going on. And my dad was trying to get me involved in something because I would just listen to music. I was either interested in Bruce Lee or Evel Knievel. Those are the only two things I dug about. Or I'd listen to music.
Until you discovered rock and roll. When you were going to these big Day in the Green shows, late 70s, you bring your camera. Were you also smoking pot, drinking beer, doing drugs?
No comment.
Okay. Causing trouble. Troubled youth. Jimmy Crowley, troubled youth. Any other questions, Harrison?
Yeah, we got one more.
Okay.
From every concert that you've been to, what has been your most like prized photographs?
It would have to be Led Zeppelin Day on the Green would have to be, or Skinner Day on the Green would be the two shows I want to go back and shoot. But what was the question again?
Which are your favorite photos that you have, from your entire collection?
The Stones, Clapton.
Are there any moments in particular that you remember as being, turning points or pivoting your career?
When she told me Mick Jagger didn't know you were coming, that's when I didn't even give a shit anymore. He knew who I was, and they knew who I was. I don't know if they knew who I was or what I was doing, but he did, because he was involved in, why are you so rich and so well off that you're worried about a guy that's doing this or that on the internet? But other than that, he was cool to me, but I pretty much bit the hand that fed. I mean, in reality, that's what I did. They were very nice to me and giving me everything, and I took it. I made a mistake, and then I paid the price.
Mm-hmm.
But the pictures will last, and that's that. And I would say the Stones, Skinner, Clapton, and that's about it. Those are my favorite three.
I have a question for you. Tell me the craziest way you've ever snuck into a concert.
All of them are crazy, but the craziest way, I can't talk about that one because we were up against a lot of people. I mean, let's put this one on. A bunch of friends wanted to go to a show, and there was a guy that was in control, and he went to him and said, "Hey, we want to bring Crowley with us. He's got us into so many things." So he goes, "All right, bring Crowley with you." So we get to the show, and he comes up to me, he goes, "Hey, Crowley, why are you wearing those pants and that shirt and that jacket?" And he grabs my tie and he pulls me towards him, and he goes, I go, "Because you don't know whether I'm a limo driver or a bartender." And he put the tie back and he was all nice about it. And he goes, "Good answer." And on went the show. But that's how I would get in. I would go dressed. You didn't know whether I was a bartender or a limo driver. I mean, when I would walk by you, because I'm going fast. I'm looking at you. I'll acknowledge you, but I'm going forward. And that's how I got in. And
I have a friend who used to go and get 50-pound bags of ice, put it on his shoulder, and just walk in through backstage because they just thought he worked there, you know?
It all has to do with the way you roll and that you know where you're going. And
right.
It works.
Well, Mr. Jimmy Crowley, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to hear about your adventure. As I said earlier, you know, we're the same age and kind of, you know, we've crossed paths many times over the years, side by side, shoulder to shoulder in the pit. You know, look forward to seeing you in the pit again. Just a reminder, August 2nd is my next Photos with Stories, and that's with Rosie McGee. We'll be talking about her photographs of the Grateful Dead mostly. I think there's some other things she has in her presentation, but she was shooting in the late 60s and has some really great stories about that time. And I'm working on some other Photos with Stories after that. So stay tuned for some really cool stuff coming up. I got a couple of really, really interesting people on tap. We're just trying to schedule them in for the right days. So thanks everybody at fans.com. Crowley, any final words for you?
Well, thank you, Jay, for this. It was a pleasure. I want to thank Harrison. I want to thank Will. And I also want to thank Jonathan Healy and all the people at fans.com for having this happen. It's been a privilege and an honor. God bless you all.
Thanks, Jimmy. We appreciate it. Right on. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on August 2nd. Photos with Stories with Rosie McGee. Jimmy, have a great weekend, rest of your weekend, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.